Hello, everyone. Welcome to the much anticipated Around the World virtual relay events as we enter a new era for food and climate driving transformative actions. My name is Amelia Yachya. I'm a news anchor for CNN Indonesia, and I'm so very honored to be a part of this important global event. And on behalf of our dearest organizers, I'd like to preface this by extending our profound gratitude and sincere thanks to everyone for your participation and for your attendance here today. All of you in Australia, all the way to Colombia, where our event starts and where we conclude. So today we have one main objective, and that is to spark action to transform our food system in this dire and unprecedented time of this COVID-19 pandemic era. And together, hand in hand, we aim to inspire a collective action on the 11 priorities laid out in the flagship and very exciting report, Transforming Food Systems under a Changing Climate Initiative, catalyzing efforts to address the current food crisis prompted by COVID-19 that launches today on the 25th of June. And to get the report, please go to the link provided below to download your copy. And please make sure you type the link address exactly as displayed. Our event is live streamed on multiple online platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook Live, with the main live stream hosted on the CCAFS website. So please do join in. As the incredible event is open to all, we have an array of topics to cover, and we welcome not just those from businesses, government officials, and international organizations and researchers, but also consumers, producers, and our youth, the eager young minds to join this transformation as well. And during this session, we have live pollings and Q&A sessions where we hope to interact with all of you. So to ask a question and participate in the audience interaction session, you will need to download the Whova app. Please see the instructions on this slide. And to access the app, you will need to enter the email address used for the event registration. And also, please create a password. If the event doesn't show up automatically, please search for a new era for food and climate. Then click the join button on the bottom of the event description page and enter the event invitation code the organizers have already sent you. Or please request a new code and wait until the organizers approve your request. Your participation in our discussion is very important. So without your support, this great transformation would not be possible. So drum roll here, without further ado, I am very honored and so very happy to be welcoming our first keynote speaker to deliver his opening remarks. But first, please allow me to tell you a little bit about him first. He's a special envoy of COVID-19 of the World Health Organization and 2018's World Food Prize laureate. He's a medical doctor who has made his career in the international civil service. And just in February, he was appointed as one of 6 special envoys for the Director General of WHO himself, tasked to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's welcome Dr. David Nabarro.
Good day. I'm so pleased to be speaking with you right at the time when the report on transforming food systems is about to be released through a grand relay organized by the Climate Change and Food Security Program of the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research. So let's just think about what this is really going to lead to. You see, the more we all look at food systems, the more we come to realize that they can function so much better. Because we want to be sure that our food systems everywhere enable everyone to get the food they need to be well nourished and healthy. We also want to be sure that the more than 2 billion people whose livelihoods depend on everything to do with agriculture and food are able to have viable and decent livelihoods. And we're very keen that producing food is also good for biodiversity and contributes to ecosystem services. And we'd like food production and food consumption to be compatible with climate and not to contribute to climate change and indeed to actually help people to have resilient livelihoods when they're put in danger as a result of changing climate. And with these factors in mind, it really is a good idea to be looking at ways of transforming food systems so that they are better for people and planet. And that's what's been asked for in the Sustainable Development Agenda that was agreed by all world leaders in September 2015. Now, the Climate Change and Food Security Programme, CCAFS, which has put together this report, is saying it's time for all of us to get talking about food, and most importantly, to get talking about food systems. That is all the different elements from food production, through to processing, through to marketing, consumption, and then all the steps on the way that are so important, including how to avoid food loss and waste, and also how to ensure that food is as nourishing as it possibly can be. And really importantly, it's about ensuring that everybody everywhere who's working on food, particularly women, are able to get a decent standard of living. And so, how are we going to do that? Well, what I've found over the last few years is that there are all sorts of different points of view about how to sort out food systems, and people really don't find it easy to agree. And so, one of the things that I've been involved in is encouraging dialogue everywhere. Dialogue between people with very different points of view, to focus on the ideal future state of food systems and to think, how can they actually work together better? And of course, that dialogue can only work if people are prepared to shift out of long-held positions and to actually reconsider the kind of food system that they would like to work for. And to do that, we've been encouraging dialogues in many different locations. More than 1,800 people have taken part, and what we're seeing is how structured dialogue can make such a difference. It can actually bring people together to think differently and act differently. And so, as we're thinking, all of us, about how we can best react to this work, I'd like us to bear 4 things in mind. If we're going to find better ways of working together on food, we've got to engage with each other, but not with those we usually engage with, but other people as well, people who've got very different points of view. And we've got to explore with them what the options are. We've actually got to open our minds to different ways of thinking and working. And then we've got to encourage new forms of arrangement to emerge that are more equitable and creative. And then we will actually be more powerful and better connected and bring about more effective results. So engage unusually, explore collectively, encourage each other equitably and creatively, and emerge more powerful through the connections we make to achieve more equitable and sustainable food systems everywhere. Thanks for the chance to talk today. Best wishes to all with the relay.
Thank you, Dr. Nabarro, for the keynote address. As Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, has said himself, he's calling for action to avoid an impending food emergency as a result of COVID-19, unless immediate action is seriously taken. This situation could have serious impacts on not just millions, but billions of lives, which is why we're holding this very session to discuss just that with 2 of our great speakers, Professor Andrew Campbell, the Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Centre for International Agriculture Research, and a member of the panel of experts who authored the just launched report. And we also have Professor Bruce Campbell, the Director of the CGIAR Research Program on Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security, or CCAFS, also an author of the report. But before we start our discussions, I'd like to remind our dearest speakers that in respect to time management, each speaker would have around 5 minutes to convey your messages. And while they're sharing their insights, we invite everyone, all of you, our audience, to write down your questions to Andrew and Bruce on the Whova app. So, Professor Andrew, hello. We'll start with you. Earlier this month, the UN warned us that the world is facing the worst food crisis in 50 years. So, how do you think we should avoid this crisis, and why have you decided to be a part of this report, and how relevant is it during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much, Amelia. It's a great honour for Australia to kick off this global relay, and also for me to be involved in the launching of this transformation report. ACR is very proud to invest in and to partner with CCAFS, so the Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security Program of the CGIAR, and I congratulate our CCAFS colleagues for organising this interesting event. As Dr. Nabarro has said, growing and processing and distributing food has enormous impacts. It's the single biggest thing that humans do on planet Earth. And therefore, we cannot address our health issues, nutrition issues, environmental issues, or poverty challenges without fixing the food system. And that's why this transforming food systems under climate change is such an important and timely report. Importantly, we need to make sure that the solutions work for more than 500 million smallholder farmers around the world, many of whom are themselves in extreme poverty and facing food insecurity. In ACR here in Australia, we have recently undertaken a rapid assessment of food system risks and resilience in our region. And that rapid assessment shows us, similar to what the Secretary General says, that we run a severe risk right now that a health crisis will precipitate a tremendous food insecurity crisis, which will impact the economic recovery of our region and regional stability, and obviously many people's health. So it's urgent that we transform food systems. It's the single biggest thing that we can do to meet many of the SDGs. And so we think this is an extremely important event, and we're very pleased to be involved.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And Bruce, with Andrew, you're also an integral part of the creation of this very report, being that it is also a result of an effort facilitated by CCAFS over the past 2 years. Even before the pandemic, you're indeed a very busy man. So what prompted you to do this? And what have you learned in the process so far? And why is it so relevant now?
Yeah, so we've been working on this for about 2 years now. And why did we start on it? We've been, as a program, we've been working for about 10 years, and there's been some great successes in the program. But when we look at the challenges, we just don't see fast enough progress amongst our research community or amongst the global community generally. Let me just give you 2 examples. So with a multitude of partners working in Senegal, we managed to get to 7 million farmers. We find that almost 2/3 of them are using our climate advisories to change their farming practices, and those ones who are changing their practices are getting something like 10 to 25% more crop income. That's 7 million farmers. We have to get, as Andrew has said, 500 million small-scale farmers. So we just have to step up our activities to a much greater level within the next decade. Or we could look at the SDGs, for example, or the Paris Agreement, and look at our progress towards those targets. Let's take SDG 2, Zero Hunger. We've done great in the last 20 years, but if you project what we've done in the past forward, there's no way we will have zero hunger by 2030. So we will fail at the SDG. So for nutrition's sake, for the environment's sake, for poverty's sake, for climate change's sake, we've come to this conclusion that we have to transform the food system through all different types, different contexts, different places. It's really a global challenge, but with very different consequences in different places. And so it's been a great experience working with something like 100 partners for the last 2 years, learning lots about the different ways and the key priorities. And the rest of the event today is all about those 11 different priorities. Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you, Bruce. Well, Bruce and Andrew, you both emphasized the sense and the need, the sense of urgency and the need to change. And Andrew, of course, we can't discuss 2020 without the devastating bushfire Australia faced since 2019. And it is undoubtedly a real reminder for the rest of the world what climate change can cause and can lead us to. Could you share with us what lessons we should have learned from that, and as we head towards a hopefully faster recovery of a COVID-19 era?
Thanks, Amelia. Well, one of the things we're acutely aware of here in Australia is that climate change is not some future phenomenon or future risk. It's here and it's with us now. We've long endured high levels of climate variability, but the frequency and intensity of extreme events, fire, drought, floods, heat waves, is something that has very big implications for farming systems and the way in which we produce food. We have significant programs here in Australia, a carbon farming initiative. We have a grassroots group called Farmers for Climate Action. So the industry itself is setting very ambitious targets. Our red meat sector has set a target of 0 net emissions by 2030. That's across all the sheep and cattle farms in Australia, like my own there behind me. That's going to be very challenging to meet even in a rich, advanced country like Australia with a terrific agricultural innovation system. But along the way, we're going to make a lot of innovations and a lot of new understandings that hopefully will help us to improve the profitability and productivity, sustainability and resilience of our farming systems. And we hope to share those lessons and adapt them and work with partners across our region to meet the same challenges that every country is facing, which is how to produce healthier food much more efficiently, much more sustainably, and within systems that are much more resilient to shocks. And we know from in Australia that we are going to see more shocks more often, more intensely.
Yes, indeed, climate change is not a future phenomenon. And Bruce, COVID-19 has also shown us that ambitious action at scale is possible, both on the part of governments and also on the part of individuals. So how can we build on these lessons to further transform our food systems and avert food and climate crisis?
Yeah, so the lessons from the COVID crisis, I think I see one really frightening lesson and 3 very positive lessons. So the frightening one is now we see what a crisis is, what a global crisis is like. And I have no doubt that we're going to experience similar climate crises in the next decade. Let's imagine simultaneous drought events in all the main wheat producing regions of the world, or most of them, and how those drive up prices. So I think that's the frightening piece. We're having a vision of the potential future if we don't tackle climate change adaptation and mitigation. On the positive side, amazing. In just a couple of months, the world mobilized $8 trillion to try and deal with the crisis. The Global Commission on Adaptation says we need $2 trillion to tackle climate change adaptation. So if we can mobilize 8 in such a short time, surely we can also mobilize 2 for climate change adaptation. The second lesson is around the absolutely amazing, innovative things that have happened in these last 2 months. One has just been astounded by the innovativeness of society in terms of doing business differently. And the third lesson for me is that actually the stuff that we've got doing and the stuff that's in the report is actually crucial for these COVID type things as well. As an example, one of the actions is around getting digital advisory service to farmers, all farmers in the world. This is a huge challenge, hundreds of millions of farmers. But those same platforms are at the moment being used in Ghana to get health-related messages to remote farmers. So it just shows you how current work taken forward in a great way can also deal with other kinds of crises. Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you, Bruce. And to our audience, if you'd like to ask questions to our speakers, to Andrew and Bruce, please participate in the live polling too. You will need to do so using the Whova app. Simply go to the Whova app and click Sessions, Q&A, and select polls and the opening relay session at the very top. And click Ask a Question and type your question and submit. And select the question being asked and submit your answer. So we have already received many questions from our audience. However, since we're pressed for time, we have more countries to during our event. I'll read out 2 questions for now. So the first is for Andrew. Andrew, the first question to our audience for you is, what government policies can enhance sustainability for food systems? Andrew.
That's a very large question and we don't have much time. Policies that make it easier for smallholder farmers to get credit and finance and to manage risk. Policies that enable people to sell their produce in high value markets. We're seeing with COVID-19, which of course is a disease arising from a coronavirus, which is a zoonotic disease that's crossed over from animals to humans, that policies around the way in which we market our food and around wildlife trade and so on, they are also critical risk management measures for the global food system. So the prevention measure for crises like COVID-19 is also in fixing some of the issues in the food system. Policies that make, in short, we need juicier carrots and smarter sticks to change the incentive regime for people who are managing water, who are managing land, and who are growing food. And ultimately, we need supply chains that reward people for growing food in more sustainable ways. And that gets right to consumer behavior and consumer preferences. So I'd recommend that if people want to find out the policy and institutional reforms that are needed, they should download a copy of the report we're launching today, and they'll get a very useful roadmap there.
Yes, and we've provided the link for that too. Thank you very much, Andrew. And our next question from the audience is for Bruce. Bruce, the question is, can sustainable agriculture help the most vulnerable population to recover from COVID-19, and how? Bruce.
Well, so if you look at vulnerability to climate change, to many other things, it's often very much linked to poverty. And so if we're thinking about low-income countries and poor farmers, some of the things that Andrew's just said about policies and getting markets working for those farmers, getting them out of poverty so that they have the choices they can make, that they've got the ability to change behaviors, that they're not locked into a system which is keeping them in poor health and poor nutrition. So agriculture is very much linked into health issues, nutrition issues, poverty issues. This is especially in the small scale sector in low income countries. So changing the way we do agriculture has ramifications right across all the different livelihood dimensions as well as the environmental dimensions. So, for us, we think it's at the center of positive change that is needed throughout the world.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And Andrew and Bruce, this next question is for both of you. What are the expectations and actions that should be taken from this conference? We'll start from Andrew.
Well, none of us individually can change the world, but each of us can do our own bit. And so I would encourage people to download the report and read it, and look in your own domain to see what changes you can make towards those broader 11 action areas. And I'm sure the people who are sufficiently interested to log into this unusual online relay are all working in different little bits of that bigger picture. And as Bruce has just outlined, we've shown in the broader response to COVID-19 that when there's a very clear objective and mission, we can make major changes very quickly, including systemic changes. So it's about combining individual actions within an overall framework, and this report is an attempt to provide such an overarching framework.
Thank you, Andrew. Bruce?
I think, so, you know, there's very many dimensions of transformation that are needed, and different groups are going to have to work on different pieces of those dimensions. So I think that there has to be a commitment to some very ambitious targets. So, for example, hundreds of millions of small-scale farmers have to be digitalized in the next decade if we want to get them the advisories and the platforms that they need to work with. That's going to need ambitious partnerships amongst different groups. And I think we're going to have to do business in a different way. So, for example, in the research community where I come from, we're exploring now, instead of scientists in the usual way dreaming up what they want to do and then going in and doing it, how can we work really closely with implementation partners who hopefully have got this ambitious transformation agenda? How can we be knowledge providers so that we can help drive the transformation? That's a very different way of doing science than what has been done in the past.
Thank you very much, Andrew and Bruce, for sharing with us your expertise and views, and I hope everyone has gained incredible and useful insights from them. And everyone, albeit fast-paced, the day is still very young. We will now flag off this relay from Australia to the next stop, Vietnam. And to flag off the relay, I invite our host, Andrew Campbell. Andrew.
Thank you, Amelia. Well, it's my great pleasure from here down under to hand over to our wonderful friends in Vietnam, and with whom we have a great relationship, and we look forward to Vietnam taking on the baton and to the rest of this relay. Good luck, everybody. Thank you.